the scribe. I noticed her before she noticed me. That's how it always starts with me. I'm the observer, the one cataloging details for later use. The way she held her wine glass at the gallery opening, fingers positioned just so on the stem. The measured way she laughed at the curator's jokes, professional but warm. Ebony. Even her name had a rhythm to it. She didn't recognize me at first, which was refreshing. Most people at these events have already Googled me, already formed their opinions about my work, my interviews, my carefully curated persona. But Ebony approached the painting I was standing in front of, a bold abstract in crimson and gold, and said simply,
It's angry, isn't it? Pretending to be joyful.
From that moment, I was hooked. Andrew Webb, I said, extending my hand.
I know.
She replied, and there it was, that flicker of recognition, but tempered with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or assessment.
I've read The Skin We Shed. You have a way with emotional excavation.
Emotional excavation, She was perfect. Here's what I told myself in those first few weeks. I wasn't doing anything wrong. We were just talking, sharing a few laughs. Coffee at that place in Midtown where nobody I knew would see us. Lunch near her office in the financial district where we discuss her world, derivatives, risk management, portfolio optimization. And she'd listen, rapt, when I translated all into metaphor, into character motivation, into story.
You see patterns in chaos. That's what I do with numbers. That's what you do with people.
She didn't know how right she was, and I'd be a fool to tell her. My wife, Melanie, had stopped seeing patterns in me years ago. Or maybe she saw them too clearly and just didn't care anymore. 15 years of marriage had calcified into routine. The kids' sports schedules, parent-teacher conferences, her nursing shifts at the hospital that left her too exhausted for conversation, let alone anything else. She'd stopped reading my work after the second book. I live with you, she'd said. I don't need to read about you too. That stung, though I'd never admitted. But Ebony read everything. She asked questions that proved she'd paid attention, that she'd thought about my choices, my craft. When I showed her early pages of the new novel, she didn't just say, "It's good." She engaged, challenged, pushed back. She made me feel like the artist I'd been at 25, before the mortgage, the minivan, and the slow suffocation of domestic obligation. I told myself Melanie had chosen this. She'd chosen exhaustion over intimacy, chosen the kids over us, chosen to let herself go. Not physically, though there was that too, but intellectually, emotionally. She'd stopped being curious about me, about the world, about anything beyond her small, exhausted orbit. Ebony was different. She was hungry for experience, for knowledge, for life. At 34, she'd built a career that demanded precision and excellence. She had her own money and her own apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. She didn't need me for anything practical. She wanted me for who I was, or at least for who I became when I was with her.
Drew, tell me about your wife.
Ebony said one evening, 6 weeks in. We were at her place, ostensibly because I needed a quiet space to write and my house was chaos, which was true enough. She'd made dinner, something complicated with saffron and white wine that Melanie would never have the energy to attempt. What about her? I said, kind of annoyed by the probe.
What made you fall in love with her?
I studied Ebony across the table. This was a test, though I wasn't sure yet what kind. She was uncomplicated, I said finally. Back then I needed that. I was churning with all this ambition, all this noise in my head, and she was steady, certain. She knew who she was.
And now?
Now that certainty feels like rigidity, that steadiness feels like stagnation. Ebony nodded slowly, and I could see her processing, trying to square what I was saying with her own moral framework. She was a good person. That was the thing about Ebony. Like genuinely good. She checked in on her friends, did thoughtful things like send money to her parents in Charlotte when she knew they might be struggling on fixed incomes. She volunteered with a financial literacy program for high school kids. She didn't want to be the other woman, but I could also see that she wanted to believe me. Wanted to believe that sometimes good people find themselves in marriages that have quietly died, that sometimes connection happens where we don't expect it, that sometimes the heart has reasons that transcend conventional morality. I was giving her permission to believe it. That was my particular skill, making people feel okay about giving me everything I wanted. "I'm not looking to blow up my life," I said, reaching across the table for her hand. "The kids need stability. And Melanie, she's a good mother. I respect it all. But I'm 43 years old, Ebony, and I feel like I'm disappearing. Like I'm becoming a character in someone else's story instead of the author of my own." It was a good line. I'd probably use it in the book.
I don't want to be the reason a family breaks apart.
"You're not breaking anything. You're reminding me that I'm still alive." That night, we crossed the line. And in the aftermath, with Ebony asleep beside me and the city lights painting shadows on her walls, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Powerful. Desired. Seen. I told myself I deserved this, that I'd earned it through years of playing the role of dutiful husband and father, years of sublimating my needs for everyone else's comfort. I told myself that Mel wouldn't even notice. She was so wrapped up in her own world that I'd become wallpaper to her, barely visible even when I was in the room. I told myself that Ebony was special, that this wasn't just about sex or ego, that we had a genuine connection that transcended the circumstances, that if Melanie had tried, even a little, to keep me interested, engaged, alive, this never would have happened. I told myself a lot of things. What I didn't tell myself, what I wouldn't let myself think about, was how Ebony's eyes had looked when she'd asked about Melanie. That flicker of doubt, quickly suppressed. The way she'd needed my justification before she could allow herself to want me. I didn't think about Mel at home, probably asleep by now, exhausted from a double shift and from being the only parent who showed up fully for those 3 kids we'd made together. I didn't think about how I was using the same skills that made me a good novelist: observation, manipulation of narrative, crafting of personas, to write a story where I was the sympathetic protagonist and everyone else was just a supporting character in my drama. I didn't think about any of that. Instead, I pulled Ebony closer and started planning our next meeting, already composing the text I'd send Mel in the morning. Deadline crunch. Stayed at a hotel near the publisher's office. Love you. Even my lies, I noticed with satisfaction, were efficient and well-crafted. That's the thing about being a writer. You're always aware that you're creating a narrative. You just don't always question whether you're the hero or the villain of the story. 6 months later. The unraveling, when it came, it wasn't dramatic. There was no confrontation, no wife finding incriminating texts, no tearful confession. Instead, it was slow and then sudden, the way a foundation cracks. Ebony started asking different questions. Not, "When can I see you?" but "Where is this going?" Not, "Tell me about your new chapter," but "Have you thought about what happens to me in all this?" She'd started seeing a therapist. That was the beginning of the end, though I didn't recognize it at the time. She'd mentioned things her therapist said, casually, as if they were just observations.
Dr. Whitman says we teach people how to treat us.
Or random statements like,
I've been thinking about why I accept crumbs when I deserve a whole meal.
I tried my usual tools. I wrote her letters, beautiful, aching letters about impossible love and the tragedy of timing. I showed up with her favorite wine, with first edition books I knew she'd treasure. I crafted perfect moments designed to remind her why this mattered, but something had shifted in her. The woman who'd once hung on my every word now looked at me with something that resembled pity.
You're never going to leave her, are you?
It's complicated.
No, it's actually very simple. You like having both. You like the stability of your family and the excitement of this. You like feeling desired without having to do the actual work of building something real with me.
That's not fair.
Isn't it?
She stood, began clearing the dinner plates with sharp, efficient movements.
I've been reading your old interviews from before you were married. You talked about Melanie differently then. Said she challenged you, pushed you, made you better. When did that stop being true? Or was it ever true?
I felt something cold settle in my chest. What are you trying to say?
I'm saying maybe Melanie didn't stop being interesting. Maybe you just needed her to be boring, so your narrative made sense. So you could justify this. So you could be the victim of a dead marriage instead of the architect of one.
You don't know anything about my marriage?
You're right. I only know what you've told me. And I'm starting to wonder how much of it is truth.
She ended it 2 weeks later, gently but firmly. Said she wanted a real relationship, not a subplot in someone else's life. Said she deserved someone who chose her first, not after everyone else's needs were met. I told myself she was naive, that she didn't understand the complexities of adult life, of family obligations. I told myself she'd realize what she was giving up. But Ebony didn't come back. She blocked my number, my email. When I tried to reach her at work, her assistant said she was unavailable. I saw on social media, before she blocked me there too, that she'd started dating someone, some banker with an uncomplicated smile and no wife at home. And Mill? She carried on as she always had, steady and certain, managing the chaos of our household with the same competence she brought to her nursing shifts. She never knew about Ebony, as far as I could tell. Or maybe she did know and simply decided I wasn't worth the upheaval of divorce. That possibility haunted me more than I expected. The new novel came out to good reviews. Webb's most introspective work yet, the Times said. A searing examination of self-deception and moral compromise. They loved it. They thought it was fiction. I'm at another event now, another glass of wine in hand, watching another accomplished woman laugh at a friend's jokes. She has warm eyes and an engaging smile. She doesn't know who I am yet. I could approach her. I could deploy all my old tools, the careful observations, the literary metaphors, the performance of being seen and understood. I know exactly how this story goes. I've told it before. The woman glances my way. Our eyes meet. She smiles, curious. I lift my glass in greeting and take a step forward.